All right, guys, give me 1 second because I am trying to go ahead and set this up really quick. Um, I believe this should be rolling, but I think it's doing this weird thing again where when I'm gonna click end broadcast is when it finally shows that it went live, and then I have to redo the broadcast again, which would be pretty annoying to do. Um, but I'm gonna wait and see if this ends up working. Looks like everything on my end is fine. Okay, there it goes. I think it, yeah, okay, there it goes. It just went. There we go. Okay. So, yep. All right, we are live. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to On Point Politics with Lester Tellers. Yes, you have seen the title change for the channel is complete. I have changed the logo because that's my real name, and I'm going to be referring to this with as On Point Politics with Lester Tellers. That's basically how I'm going to start referring the show to as, and that's going to be the new channel name pretty much. I mean, I can go by On Point Politics, but that's going to be the new channel name at this point in time. And what I'm going to be talking about today, and I hope more people start kind of tuning in. I know that I kind of did this very like kind of briefly. I kind of set this up very quickly, but the problem was is that I kind of had some issues with later scheduling events later on, and so I'm kind of doing the stream now instead of later. So hopefully whoever can join, and I'm gonna wait and go ahead and wait until a couple more people end up joining the chat. As of right now, I'm gonna wait and see who's kind of coming in here really quick. So I will be working on that. Just give me guys a quick second because I am gonna look at a couple things before we get started here. But I hope everyone's having a good weekend. I hope everybody's doing pretty well. The channel today's done pretty decent. A video got a decent amount of views today, which is always a good thing. And so we're just kind of looking at that. However, right now I do want to talk about something because I do want to branch out the live shows a little bit in terms of what kind of content the live shows do comprise of. That is something I do want to work on. And so the main thing that I'm going to be talking about today is how to be a nice voter. And this is a kind of thing where what's actually quite funny is this is an acronym that I kind of came up on the spot to kind of help everybody in the United States really have a guide as to what kind of voter you need to be in order to be a respected voter, be somebody who makes decisions on their feet, somebody who's able to analyze the room politically very well. And so before we do get started, please like the video, guys. Subscribe. I see that there was 10 of you guys and then there were 10 likes, so the 7 people who did join, if you guys could leave a like, I would greatly appreciate it. I gotta try to keep the likes and the concurrent viewers as aligned with each other as humanly possible. So I greatly appreciate it if you would drop the like on the video. And now we're going to be getting into this. And so, because the thing is, there's no live view count on my phone for whatever reason. So that was kind of annoying. It's kind of annoying to deal with it. And the problem is that usually I have my computer on the other side, but it is too big of a space to have that kind of stuff. And yes, there is a channel name change. I am leaving it as On Point Politics with Lester Tellers. That is my real name, guys. So name review, I guess, for 10,000 subscribers. I was gonna do it when I hit 10k, but I'm like, I might as well just do it right now. All this setup that I kind of have was also gonna be once I hit 10k, but I was like, I might as well just do it right now. And so pretty much, guys, the first part of the acronym of nice voter would be nimble. So someone who is being adaptable to new information on the fly in order to update beliefs as much as possible. This is something that I had to learn at an earlier age. And this goes for anybody that's, independent, Republican, Democrat, whatever you are, there's certain things that have to align with your morals, because At the time when I was a teenager, I did support the Democratic Party. I was very, let people be happy, let people be whatever they want. And I have a strong philosophy now that being happy is not the main purpose of life. And it's a bonus to having a good life, but it's definitely not a requirement per se to have every single second of the day. And so what's really happening is that there's people out here that are doing things in the name of, oh, just to be happy, and it's not really benefiting anybody. And so me for $2 says you should vote in the United States Assembly for real, on God. Is that like a Discord server or something like that? I'm not sure if that's a Discord server or not, but guys, what I want to talk about is something that's particularly important, because there are a lot of people out here that just go ahead and vote, and they don't vote with their brain. They vote with their feelings. And that is not the way to go about this. That's not how the founding fathers intended for voting to occur. That's not how voting should occur in general. That's just not how it should be. I know there's a lot of people that go out here on both sides. They vote for vibes, like, oh, Biden's, nice grandpa kind of figure, oh, I don't like bad orange man, or oh, Biden is this, or whatever, Biden's a zombie, blah, blah, blah. And then they'll kind of vote in respect to that. But that is not the way to go about it on either side. That's not the right way to go about it. And so I believe that it's best to be adaptable to new information. Now, don't be this kind of person that's open to everything, because that's not good either, because then you won't have a, principled set of beliefs, but you'll kind of start seeing that there's a little bit of a trend where you can kind of, adapt to certain things based on new information. So for example, let's say you really like this person or you like this policy, and turns out this policy caused a negative effect, or this person had a pretty bad, set of events that maybe you don't agree with. You got to be adaptable to change your opinion because of that, because if not, you just seem not credible. That's just kind of the first part of the whole acronym. The second part is being informed. So know the basics of the politics you want to invest in. So my main thing is really looking at electoral politics, kind of predicting the elections. That's the main thing I've been focusing on the past 4 months. And as a nice voter, I have to be somebody that, at least understands the basics of this stuff, because there are people out here. I also think it's irresponsible for a voter to not know, the blue states, the red states, the swing states. I think it's irresponsible, because what ends up happening on election day is you'll see the results coming in, and you'll start telling your friends, oh, Texas, Biden's leading in Texas by 5 points with 15% in. Oh, it's going to go blue. Like, come on. Or Rhode Island, I think Trump was leading in Rhode Island in 2020 for like about an hour or so on election night, and a bunch of people must have been, oh my God, Rhode Island's gonna go red. But that's just not how it works. I think it's legitimately irresponsible for someone to not know what kind of state they're living in. It's just not okay. Now, I don't think that the way a state votes should kind of dictate where somebody lives, because that could always change over time. Even though we are getting more politically polarized, and it's kind of becoming a little bit more of a problem where states may not change for quite a while, I still think it's important for someone to know what kind of state they're living in politically, so they kind of know how to maneuver themselves in the state as a whole. I think if you're going to be covering any sort of, issue, I think it's best that the issue at heart. Like, for example, if you're going to do a channel or you're going to be talking about abortion, you should be able to have a decent consensus, or at least a decent understanding of what entails, abortion policies in your state, where the whole political divide on that comes from, what demographics support this the most. The little things are very important. So for example, like, not a lot of people know that depending on how you ask the question of, where, how many weeks, months, trimesters do you support for a national ban, that could fluctuate depending on where you basically where you ask the question. The response could vary tremendously, and I think it's not a good thing for someone to not understand that. So I think that really understanding what you're talking about is another thing that's definitely something important. Another thing is being concentrated, which for me, this definition is understand the deep details of your voting choices that could affect your community and others, not just how it affects yourself, but how it affects others. And not everyone's going to be happy with your decision, because there's a lot of people that are going to vote for Trump that hold on there's a lot of people that are not going to vote for Trump, or that are going to vote for Trump, that are not exactly how can I say this, that there's a lot of people that are voting for Trump but don't understand how that would make others feel. Now again, not everyone's going to be happy with your result. Like, don't change your vote because somebody says you should. Like, that's not the right way to go about things, because that is voter intimidation. That is a form of voter suppression. And that's what the mainstream media, that's what large influencers, that's what they do. They do forms of voter intimidation to not get people to turn out. It's a big part of the culture now. However, you could see it's mainly backfiring, especially on Trump, because with Trump, this whole voter intimidation thing does not work with him. It just doesn't work, because it's been 8 years. We've had an entire presidential term with the guy, and the country was still alive during and after. And so there is no reason why somebody should be there. I'm going to put this on the record. There is no reason why someone should be mortally petrified for Trump to get elected. There's just no reason, because we've had an entire term with the guy and nothing happened. And you can make the case that, okay, well, there's certain things he didn't do because it's not his second term or whatever, but it's still nothing happened to the point where it was deliberately on purpose to get people, deported, or, mass violence to the extent where half the country was burning. Well, relatively, yes, the BLM riots did get out of hand, but that was mainly responsible by the people who did the actions themselves. The president didn't really incite anything during the BLM riots, but I think it is responsible for someone to know, what kind of effects do things have. Like, when Trump was talking about, okay, well, gas might go up if Biden gets elected, this might happen, instead of just sitting there and being like, oh, well, I make $200K a year, well, I'm going to be fine. The gas prices or whatever are not going to affect me. You should have thought to yourself and said, well, okay, well, we can see that this guy is clearly not mentally well. It's very objectively true that Biden is not mentally well, to the point where the special counsel ruled that he can't even stand on trial for supposed criminal activity, because he legit cannot remember when his son died. He can't remember when he became vice president. He doesn't even remember when he became vice president. So we can't know. That's the problem. We can't, voters can't be out here and just be like, well, what, just because you're going to be okay doesn't mean other people are going to be okay. There are people that are genuinely affected by Biden's presidency in some rural areas. Like, there are people who have lost jobs. And you could say, okay, well, people lost jobs during Trump, but that was mainly during COVID, and it was during a global pandemic where the whole country shut down. On average, Trump's presidency, he gained jobs, and more full-time jobs than part-time jobs. Meanwhile, Biden last month, it didn't create, the administration had nothing to show for full income jobs and, basically full-time jobs. There was nothing to show for it, and there was only part-time jobs that were relatively low income, and that's not good for the economy. The economy cannot sustain itself with those jobs, and the problem with those jobs is a lot of them are being held by, the same person 2 or 3 times. So one person could be holding 2 or 3 of the jobs, and then a lot of people, that are illegal aliens are getting, imported into the country and are taking those jobs that somebody that is freshly coming into the marketplace could have easily had as a legal citizen. I just think that there's a lot of things to think about. And going back to the last, part of the acronym informed, make sure that you don't believe everything on mainstream media, because not everything on mainstream media is real. Even me, I could be wrong about something. You got to go ahead and do the research. I mean, I try my best to give my most objective takes, and I try to be as objective as humanly possible, but I could be wrong about something. I could be wrong. But at least I'll be here to admit that I could be wrong. There are people out there, especially mainstream media, who will proclaim that they will die on a hill that, Trump's bad orange man, or that, Biden's FDR, or that Trump is this, or Trump's that, or that Trump is the greatest president of all time, which Trump is not the greatest president of all time. He's one of the best ones, but definitely not the best. I'd personally say the best one that we've had is probably Abraham Lincoln, because he was able to save the nation from becoming basically a split confederacy with a northern nation. If it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't even be living here right now. I would not be living in Florida. I'd probably be in a third world country, not even making this video. And I think that that is my objective analysis on why he would be the best president. But again, it's really important to kind of do your work, guys. Don't get and again, I know you guys in the audience right now, a lot of my core followers have kept up with stuff, but there's a lot of people out there that watch the January 6th news and will straight up, just from watching the news, will be like, okay, yeah, Trump incited an insurrection. Or they'll see the news and look at to be fair to the other side, there are YouTube channels out there that, Trump actually won Pennsylvania, and oh my God, we found the ballots, and it's on video, and it's all clickbait. So it's not just the Democrats that do it, the Republicans do it too. They also do it as well. It's a very, very big problem for the United States to have, both mainstream sides of the media just lying about stuff. Now, I have to say though, Georgia, the Fulton County, whatever commission held this meeting, did have an actual meeting that about 380,000 ballot images were not available, and that about 6,000 of them were switched from Biden to Trump, which is about half of Biden's margin in Georgia. So there was an actual meeting the other day in Fulton that did actually kind of go over the possibility of there being general, certain magic tricks. I'm not going to say it online because I don't want to get demonetized, but there are things that are actually going on that are not good. And I think it's just really irresponsible for people to go off of whatever both sides say. I suggest look at both, sides of the spectrum, kind of use common sense, guys. It is not, does it really seem like common sense for Biden to double the capital gains tax? Is that really something that, going into an election year where the economy is not the worst, but it's definitely not the best, would it be a really great idea to raise the capital tax by double of what it was? That is not a good idea. It's just simply not. It is not good. And the fundamental thing is that there will be people out there that will straight up deny that Biden is not charismatic. People will go out there and pretend that Biden is Barack Obama. Regardless of whether or not you liked Obama or not, Obama was a charismatic guy. It's just the truth. That's why he was able to win 2 terms against 2 candidates who were actually in the favorable ratings nationally. People don't remember this, but John McCain had a favorable rating nationally in 2008. This is not something that's talked about. It's just Obama had a way larger approval rating. Obama had like a plus 20 approval rating. McCain only had +8. That's why Obama was able to beat him. But it just goes to show that you don't have to be the most popular person to win. You could have your little base and still win the election. Like Trump. Trump, theoretically, compared to McCain, was less popular nationally. But again, less people were tuned into politics. So theoretically, Trump's 35% is more significant than John McCain's 44% approval rating. And now Trump is actually sitting at around a 44% approval rating. And so I think it's important, to be adaptable, know the basics of what you're looking into, be concentrated on what effects could happen in your community. And the last point here is being experienced. Gain experience with the knowledge you've acquired and the opinions that you have, and make sure you're able to defend them at any cost, because there will be a time where, especially with Republicans, there are places out there that will literally just deny you a job because of your political affiliation. And it may not be something that's even on your transcript or it's not in your resume, but it'll be something that someone out there will find. Someone out there will find it and they will use it against you. And they'll be like, hey, what's this? Even the creator of Finance at Freddy's. Guys, I'm going to say something on the show that a lot of people don't know here, but I'm actually already an online presence even beside this. I made a Finance at Freddy's spin-off game called Grizzlies VR, and when people found out about certain beliefs that I had, people were not happy, and it actually ended up becoming a pretty big problem. And so what's interesting is, it's just you gotta be careful with what you put out there, your digital footprint. You gotta be careful with the people you talk to. You gotta be careful with how you even project your opinions and how you're able to defend them. That's the most important part. If you have the stats and you have the aura to defend yourself, like if you have the will to be able to go there and be like, okay, this is what I believe in, because this stat says this, or because I just feel like this. That's it. And this goes for both sides. I mean, honestly, if you believe that a man and a woman are the same thing, or that, they could be interchangeable, we can't do anything about it. That's what you believe, and you gotta be able to defend it as best as you can. But luckily, for the people who believe that a man is a man and a woman is a woman, the science is definitely on their side. But again, you gotta be able to really be able to defend yourself in all scenarios, regardless of political affiliation. And this goes to both sides of the aisle. This definitely goes to both sides. I'm not trying to be, basically biased, even though I do have a leaning of being on the right. I just think that it's funny because I used to be a full-blown Democrat. I used to be one of these super liberal, progressive Democrats that wanted free healthcare and all this and that before 2020. Like, I was very big on it. And once I saw Biden, I was like, oh no, he's not great. And I was kind of like, something's not right here. And then the more I would listen to Trump, the more I was like, I kind of like him more than Biden. And then as I got more politically involved, I started kind of researching stuff. I was like, oh, it's not good. And like, for example, like, really, guys, to be honest, there is no reason for Biden to be getting like 90% of the black vote. There is no reason. There is no reason for Biden to be getting 90% of the black vote. There is no reason. Now, again, I'm not saying he is guaranteed to lose or that he should lose it. But the fact that 90% of the African community is voting for Biden, there's just no reason. There is none. You ain't black? If you haven't figured out who you're going to vote for, you're not black? What in the hell? If I was black, I'd be offended as hell. I would have been super offended. And there's people that, don't even know he said that, which is the main reason why a lot of African Americans still support him, even though Trump's gained a lot and he's fallen a lot. Or they'll just straight up be like, oh, well, he really didn't he didn't really mean it like that. He's a real ninja. He's this, he's a part of the community. Get the hell out of here. There is no reason for him to be winning 90% of the black vote. There is no reason for him to be doing so. None. It's just not it. And you could even say the same thing with like Hispanics too. Like there may be some people who think, oh, well, there is no reason why Trump should be getting 30-40% of Hispanics. Now, it really depends on how you look at it. Again, for me, my values are America first. I want this country to have a priority over nations. It's just my belief. I believe that the presidency is a statesman position where the goal of the presidency is for the person to do their job effectively and to be able to communicate that effectively to the public. That is what the presidency should be. I used to be this kind of person that was like, oh, the president needs to be this and that. It needs to be politically correct and all stuff. That's not me anymore. Honestly, there's a lot of people out there, especially a lot of older people that are very like, ooh, the president, Biden, Trump curses, Trump says this, he's so mean. But if a guy could be super nice and he's not doing the job right, then what's the point? And so that's just my personal opinion on it. And I guess I'm growing up in a different time politically. And that's also a big part of it too. But that's just how I see it. And so that's really the analysis of being a nice voter. Nimble, informed, concentrated, and experienced. Remember that, guys. Share that with your family even. Share that with your family. Share that with your friends. I think it's important for everybody to be a nice voter. I think it really is, because we would be in a much better spot if everybody was this way. I'd almost guarantee you, or at least like a decent amount of the electorate was this way, Donald Trump would have won re-election fairly easily. He would have beaten Biden relatively easily. If we would have gone back and we would have looked at the electorate at this point in time, and we would have, let's say that 50% of the electorate was nice voters, or at least even 60. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona would have immediately gone Republican, including Nebraska's second. Nevada would have gone Republican, including the state of, let's look at the next one, because I believe the next state on here would have probably ended up being Minnesota and New Hampshire. This probably would have ended up being the electoral map if at least a decent majority of the population was a nice voter. This would have been the result. Now, in 2016, the victory would have been even bigger. Trump probably would have won Colorado, New Mexico. He probably would have pulled out of Virginia. He probably would have won Alabama. Now, what's actually quite funny is that if everybody had this mentality in 2012, I actually think we would have had an even bigger Obama victory. He probably would have held on in North Carolina. He probably would have held on. He probably would have even held on to Indiana, and he also would have picked up Montana and Missouri, and even held on to both Nebraska's first and Nebraska's second. So Obama would have probably beaten Mitt Romney by quite a bit in this scenario. And not only that, what's actually quite funny is that if everybody, and then what's funny is that if everybody voted like this in 2008, what's actually quite funny is that McCain would have had a way better shot at winning the presidency. He would have won Florida. He would have won Indiana in this electoral college scenario. He probably would have even won North Carolina at this point. And so you would have had a way closer victory. I'd even say that Ohio would have even gone, well, maybe not Ohio, because Republicans back then needed Ohio to win the presidency. But I could even see Colorado and Virginia potentially have even voted Republican in this scenario at the time. And Obama kind of would have had a narrow victory in the electoral college. Retaking the Nation says get up to 10K. I greatly appreciate that. I believe we've gained like a sub in the entire live. I don't know how many people have actually tuned in, because I don't have my studio stream like on the side, and we did actually do this stream relatively early, so I probably would have had more people later on, but that's okay. That's not a big deal. I also believe that in 2000, if people would have had this mentality back in 2000, I'm almost certain Al Gore probably would have been the president. We probably would have had him winning Florida. And we'll actually pull up the margins just to kind of get a better picture here. I believe we would have had a Florida victory for Al Gore. He probably would have won New Hampshire. He probably would have ended up possibly even winning, Ohio, Tennessee, Missouri, and Nevada. Al Gore would have won fairly easily if this was the mentality that a lot of people had at the time, because the economy was pretty good in 2000, because it was riding off of Bill Clinton. Despite whatever you think of Bill Clinton, he was doing the job pretty effectively, and he was able to win pretty convincingly both times. And I think that if people would have had this mentality, Al Gore probably would have been able to defeat George W. Bush relatively easily in this electoral college scenario. If we would have looked at, for example, and it's actually quite funny because let's go back to 84. I feel like if we would have gone back to 84, I actually think that Mondale would have done a lot better. You probably, if people had this mindset, you probably would have seen Mondale take all of the you would have seen Mondale done quite a bit better. And the reason why I think that this would have been the case is because Ronald Reagan, again, guys, he is very likable. A lot of Republicans like him, and I like his personality too, but at the end of the day, this is not a personality contest. This is the office of the presidency. And the problem with Reagan is that a lot of things like a no-fault divorce, amnesty for illegals, a lot of this stuff started during his administration, and it actually kind of enacted a lot of liberal policies that the Democrats really like today. And I don't agree with those things. And so if you were a conservative voter really going out there trying to vote for conservative things, Reagan wasn't really not even your best option. Now, do I think Mondale would have beaten Reagan? No, but I think he would have done a lot better. I think he would have done quite significantly better. He probably would have even won Hawaii in the scenario. He probably would have had, Reagan at 367. Mondale would have been at 171 at this point in time. And what's actually quite funny is that we're going to go back to 92. And what's actually quite interesting is that a lot of people are going to give me slack for this, but I almost guarantee that if everybody had a nice voter mentality, Ross Perot probably would have had a legitimate shot at winning the presidency. And if we look at this, data, we would have seen that he would have ended up taking, Maine second, Maine at large. I probably would have expected Clinton to get around, he probably would have gotten around 38% of the national popular vote. Ross would have gone maybe around 28. Bush would have probably ended up getting like 30 something. And in this scenario, you probably would have seen him do relatively well in a number of states, to the point where it would have been pretty concerning. And what I'm basically going to do is all of these states that effectively he had at a percentage of above 20%, he was pretty much in game of winning all of these states. He really was in play to really win a lot of these. If you look at, some of these, northeastern states, he was doing pretty well. Connecticut, Delaware, a lot of these he was doing relatively well. And he probably would have been able to pick up, a lot of these states. He would have had Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, no, Delaware, yes, Maryland, no, and that, no. So you probably would have seen, him do fairly well in the Northeast. You would have probably seen him, pick off Wisconsin. You would have seen him, do fairly well in the region here. He probably would have picked off Ohio. He would have probably ended up picking off Missouri in this scenario. He probably would have ended up getting, if we keep looking, we're going to see here that he does relatively well. He probably would have ended up barely getting Florida in this scenario. He probably would have done pretty well here. he probably would have picked up all of these areas. And if we look at Nebraska at large, he does pretty well there. He does well in Nebraska's second, Nebraska's first, and in Nebraska's third. So he probably would have picked up all of these. He would have ended up picking off Texas. He would have ended up getting Colorado. He would have ended up getting, Wyoming. A lot of these places would have voted for him fairly easily. Not New Mexico. And if we look at Nevada, Washington, he would have ended up picking off these as well. And you would have seen California also go to him as well. So he would have actually won the Electoral College. Funny enough, fairly interestingly enough, he would have actually won the Electoral College based off of this. Just me giving him every single state where he got 20% or higher in the national popular vote in the state, he actually ends up winning the Electoral College fairly easily. Bill Clinton would have done well in some of the Appalachian areas, and George W. Bush would have done somewhat okay in some of like the Sun Belt area, like Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia. And Ross Perot would have done really well in the Great Plains, would have taken the West Coast, Texas, Florida, would have ended up getting some of the Northeast. And that's probably what the map would have ended up looking like. We could have had a lot better results, if that was the case. And I think if we applied that mentality this year, I think RFK probably could get a couple of electoral votes. Now, do I think he has a legitimate shot at winning like Ross Perot? No, I don't think he would have a shot. But I would say that he possibly would have the chance of winning a Maine at large, in Alaska. I'd say be possible. Do you see Glenn Youngkin running in 2028? It's a little bit interesting because if he does run, it would be interesting because I think that he would be okay. But, see, I don't know how to feel about that because I think that Glenn Youngkin, I don't know how to feel about it. I don't know. I think that Youngkin would win purely off of Newsom's unpopularity. I don't think Youngkin would win because he's Youngkin. I just think that he'd win because of the fact that Gavin Newsom would be so unpopular. I think that's what it is. I don't think that he'd be winning the election because he is the best candidate ever for president. I just think that he'd win strictly off of optics from the other party. So I could see an electoral college scenario of something like this probably happening. This is something that could potentially happen in the future. Do you think Marco Rubio will be Trump's VP? I'm not sure about the VP, and I haven't made an official prediction. However, I do think that Marco Rubio would actually, not gonna lie, I think he'd actually be a pretty decent option for Trump, because I think with Marco Rubio, you actually would secure a lot of Sunbelt support, especially in a place like Arizona. I think that Marco Rubio might be somebody to help out there. And so if Trump, and even a place like Nebraska's second, he could really help out with that. So he would actually be a good VP pick electorally. As an actual VP, I'm not exactly sure how well he'd do, but in terms of getting him elected, I think that Marco Rubio would be pretty good, because he'd help Trump win North Carolina, help him win Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, and probably help him get Nebraska's second, which did have a new poll out of there, and that puts Trump already at 269 electoral votes. And the cool part about 269 is that if Trump gets there, more than likely through the contingent elections in the House, he probably already automatically wins the election right then and there. And he wouldn't even need the Rust Belt in this scenario to even win the Electoral College, which would be a pretty interesting result. And so, guys, that is basically it for this stream as of right now. I know it was fairly quick, but I do have plans for, this week and today and stuff like that. I do got to get going. So if you guys did enjoy the stream, please hit that like button before you go. Make sure to subscribe if you're new, and make sure to follow the Twitter and join the Discord in the description down below. And I will see you guys very, very soon.